November is going to be the month where we basically will going to be asked by the universe to review what has been going on in our lives. November, there's going to be two very, very important retrogrades, and they are connected. First, Mercury retrogrades, and then near to the middle of the month, Jupiter turns retrograde. Remember, Mercury is going to retrograde in Sagittarius. That's Jupiter's sign. We're currently already in the shadow period. So Mercury retrogrades in Sagittarius, and the ruler or dispositor of Sagittarius, which is Jupiter, is also going retrograde. So Mercury and its ruler are both going to retrograde. So this is a sign that this review is going to be a very, very deep review for the month of November. Not only that, in the last week of the month, we're going to experience Saturn turns direct. So the planet of karma, the planet of obstacles, the planet that basically teach us the hard lessons, is going to turn direct. So Saturn is finally giving its blessings, giving solutions to us, and Saturn basically is telling us the lessons you already learned, the lessons I will release. Saturn is finally turning direct. So the month of November is the month of review. Review our communications, our thought patterns, our philosophy of life, Jupiter. This month is also going to be the month where there's still some Grand Water Trines, because the Sun is still going to be in Scorpio. Jupiter, even though turning retrograde, is still also in Cancer, and Saturn, even though it's going direct, and the North Node still in Pisces. So there's still a very potent emotional trines, Grand Water Trines, in the month of November. But the key word for the month of November is review, and it's for everyone. So this is my take on the effect of these retrogrades and other events for the month of November for all 12 rising signs. For the first rising sign, we will go to Aries rising, the most accurate, followed by Aries sun and Aries moon. For my dear Aries rising friends, the most important day to watch for in November would be November 4th, because it would be the time when your chart ruler Mars enters Sagittarius. This would be your 9th house. So it's trining to you. So this is a good transit. And then on the 5th November, there's going to be a full moon in Taurus in your 2nd house. There's going to be a culmination in terms of money. This full moon is also special because the moon is exalted in Taurus, and this is the biggest supermoon of the year. On November 6th, Venus, the ruler of your 2nd house and also the ruler of your 7th house, will enter Scorpio. This is your 8th house. And then Uranus on November 8th will enter Gemini, will re-enter Taurus, leaving Gemini, right? This will be your 2nd house. There's going to be shake-up in your 2nd house. And then on November 9th, we're going to experience Mercury retrograde. Mercury will retrograde from Sagittarius to Scorpio, so from the 9th house to your 8th house. And then on the November of 11th, we're going to experience Jupiter retrograde. Jupiter is the ruler of your 9th house as well as your 12th house. Jupiter will retrograde in Cancer in your 4th house, still in 4th house, Cancer. And then what else? On November 19th, Mercury will leave Sagittarius, entering Scorpio. So it will leave your 9th house and will re-enter your 8th house. And then on November 20th, we're going to experience a full moon in Scorpio, Full moon in Scorpio, it will be a culmination. Sorry, not a full moon, a new moon in Scorpio. New moon in Scorpio, meaning that there's going to be a new energy in terms of your Scorpionic house, which is your 8th house, shared resources, intimacy, transformation. And then we're going to experience the sun. On the 22nd November, will enter Sagittarius, illumination of your 9th house. Remember, your chart ruler also already there in your 9th house. Mercury will also retrograde starting from your 9th house. So November, your 9th house will be activated very strongly. And then we're going to experience on the 28th, Saturn turning direct, right, finally, in Pisces. Pisces is your 12th house. Saturn is the ruler of your 10th house as well as your 11th house. So there's going to be, I'm not going to say loss, but 12th house is the house of spirituality. The ruler of your 10th and your 11th in the 12th. Meaning that something regarding your career and your friendship will involve spirituality or involve something that has something to do with health. Pisces is health, mental health, as well as place where you rest and recuperate. So I suggest you pay attention more to your mental health as well as your rest. And then after that, we're going to experience Mercury turning direct on the 29th of November. Mercury will turn direct in Scorpio in your 8th house. And then on the November 30th, we're going to experience Venus, the ruler of your 7th and also your 2nd, enters Sagittarius, meaning that once again, your 9th house is going to be activated strongly. So for Aries rising, this November, your 9th house is going to be focused because your chart ruler is there. For the next rising sign, we will go to Taurus rising, the most accurate, followed by Taurus sun and Taurus moon. For Taurus rising, the most important days to watch for November is when your chart ruler is moving. Your Taurus, your chart ruler is Venus. So on November 6th, Venus will enter Scorpio, and then on November 30th, the last day, Venus will enter Sagittarius. So these are the two important days for you. But before that, on November 4th, we're going to experience Mars enter Sagittarius. And then on November 5th, there's going to be a full moon in Taurus. You going to be the star of this full moon. This is also going to be the biggest full moon in this term. And this means that this is a super moon. This is going to be the biggest of this year. On November 6th, Venus, your chart ruler, enters Scorpio, meaning that chart ruler will now oppose you because your Taurus, Scorpio is your opposing sign. So 7th house will be activated. And then November 8th, Uranus will leave Gemini and enter Taurus once again, entering your first house. Once again, so there's going to be some shake-up in terms of your personality, your body maybe, right? Your appearance, your energy, your aura. So just be mindful. And then we're going to experience Mercury retrograde 9th of November in Sagittarius. And then Jupiter will also turn retrograde on November 11th, 2 days after that. And then on what else? We're going to experience, November 19th, Mercury will leave Sagittarius and enter Scorpio. Once again, your 7th house is activated. And then November 20th, we're going to experience a new moon in Scorpio. This also activates your 7th house. So there's a lot of energies in your 7th house. Of course, 6th and 7th house, because Sagittarius for Taurus is your 6th house, and Scorpio will be your, Sagittarius will be your 8th house, and Scorpio will be your 7th house. And then we're going to experience Sun enters Sagittarius on November 22nd, right? So Sun leaving your 7th house, Scorpio, and then enters Sagittarius, your 8th house. And then we're going to experience Saturn turning direct November 28th. Saturn will still be in Pisces, so it will be turning direct. Pisces for you will be your 11th house. So this would be your friendship, your networking, your social media, Saturn will give you blessings when it turns direct, but you have to do the hard work beforehand. So the result will happen after it turns direct. And then on November 29th, Mercury will turn direct once more in Scorpio, your 7th house. It will turn direct and then will move forward towards your 8th house, Sagittarius. And then after that, Venus, your chart ruler, the most important planet for you, on November 30th, Venus will enter Sagittarius. So the focus for you mainly would be on your 7th house and on your 8th house. For the third rising sign, we will go to Gemini rising, the most accurate, followed by Gemini sun and Gemini moon. Gemini, your chart ruler Mercury is going to be the main highlight for this entire November, because Mercury is going to retrograde almost the entire month. We're already in the shadow period. So for my Gemini risings, make sure if you can prepare, you can prepare. So review and revisit, right? And then rethink everything, whatever decisions that you make for the entire month of November. Okay, for the 4th of November, Mars enters Sagittarius. And then on the 5th, there's going to be a full moon in Taurus. Your Taurus will be your 12th house. So focus on sleep, rest. November 6th, Venus enters Scorpio. And then November 8th, Uranus leaves Gemini and then re-enters Taurus, your 12th house, once again. And then on the November 9th, this is important, Mercury turns retrograde. This is you. Review, revisit, and recheck everything, right? Make sure you pay attention to the details, and then make sure you see the fine prints again. And then on November 11th, Jupiter will retrograde. And then after that, after Jupiter retrogrades, we're going to experience a new moon in Scorpio, November 20th. And then after that, November 22nd, Sun will enter Sagittarius. This is your 7th house. So for Gemini, your chart ruler is retrograding in the 7th house. There's going to be a lot of energies in your 7th house because your chart ruler is there, retrograding from the 7th house to the 6th house. So it's all about relationship, and then also 6th house, it's all about work, details of your daily life. So you have to be careful. Health also, so pay attention to your health. And then after Sun enters Sagittarius November 22nd, we're going to experience Saturn direct November 28th. Saturn will going to be direct in Pisces, right? Pisces is your 10th house. So something that you have been doing or striving to do, or hard work in your career, Saturn will give rewards, but only if you work diligently, discipline. And then after that, we're going to experience Mercury finally turn direct November 29th. This is the last part of the month. Mercury will turn direct. This is your chart ruler. So everything, if you've been paying attention, revisiting, just making sure the details, if you make an extra effort, right? Mercury turns direct will bring result. But you have to remember, when Mercury retrogrades, contracts, starting new things, because especially you're ruled by Mercury. If you can't put it on hold, put it on hold until Mercury turns direct. And then November 30th, Venus will enter Sagittarius. So when Venus enters Sagittarius, once again, the highlight will be in your 7th house. So because the retrogrades of your chart ruler Mercury will happen in your 7th house, and it will be a retrograde to your 6th house. Remember, your focus this month will be on the 7th house and the 6th house. For the next rising sign, we will go to Cancer rising, the most accurate, followed by Cancer sun and Cancer moon. For my dear Cancer rising friends, this Month of November, the focus will be, well, for Cancer, the moon is moving 2.5 days per sign. So yeah, it's pretty fast. But the focus for Cancer is going to be Jupiter and as well as Saturn, because Jupiter is in your sign, retrograde, and Saturn is in a sign trining you, which is Pisces, turning direct. So on the 4th of November, Mars will enter Sagittarius, and then on the November 5th, full moon in Taurus. Taurus for Cancer rising is your 11th house. And then November 6th, Venus enters Scorpio, a friendly sign to you, right? Scorpio will be your 5th house. Venus loves to be in your 5th house. Venus, the house of pleasure or the house of joy for Venus is in the 5th house. So your 5th house is going to be illuminated. This is children, fun, creativity, love, romance, right? And then November 8th, Uranus re-enters Taurus, 11th house also for you. And then Mercury turns retrograde November 9th in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is your 6th house. Because for Cancer, Capricorn is your 7th house, 6th house is your Sagittarius. So remember to pay attention to your work details. And then November 11th, Jupiter turns retrograde in your sign. It will still be, after the end of the retrograde, it will still be in your sign, the 1st house. So revisit and also rethink about yourself, right? This is about the 1st house. The 1st house is you, personality, your appearance, your body. Pay attention also to your health. Jupiter can expand things beyond what is necessary, so pay attention. And then after Jupiter retrogrades, we're going to experience Mercury leaving Sagittarius, entering Scorpio. This will be your 5th house. And then after that, a new moon in Scorpio, November 20th. Good time to start creative projects. Right, this is your chart ruler also. Full moon in Taurus, 11th house, also your chart ruler on November 5th. So November 5th and then November 20th, full moon and new moon. Your chart ruler will be involved. 5th house, 11th house Taurus, 5th house Scorpio. And then after that, November 22nd, Sun enters Sagittarius, your 6th house. And then November 28th, Saturn turns direct in Pisces. Pisces is your 9th house. So Pisces, your 9th house, this is the house of religion. This is the house of travel. This is also the house of philosophy of life. So Saturn, you've been doing your homework in terms of your 9th house things, traveling, passport, visas. Saturn will reward you after it turns direct in Pisces. And then Mercury turns direct November 29th in your 5th house, it will re-enter Sagittarius eventually, your 6th house. And then November 30th, Venus will enter Sagittarius in your 6th house. So for you, because the movement of the moon is quite fast, the highlight for November will be Sagittarius and also Scorpio, which is your 6th and 5th house, as well as Saturn is in your 9th house, and Jupiter, which will be turned retrograde in your 1st house. For the 5th rising sign, we will go to Leo rising, the most accurate, followed by Leo sun and Leo moon. For Leo, the most important planet that we'll have to watch for you would be the sun. Transit of the sun. The sun will move every month. So for this month of November, the sun will be in Scorpio, and then on the 22nd, the sun will move into Sagittarius. So on the 4th of November, Mars will enter Sagittarius. On the 5th, there's going to be a full moon in Taurus. And then on the 6th, Venus enters Scorpio. And then on the 8th, Uranus leaves Gemini and re-enters Taurus. November 9th, Mercury will turn retrograde in Sagittarius. November 11th, Jupiter will turn retrograde. And then after that, Mercury will leave Sagittarius, re-enters Scorpio, November 19th. November 20th, new moon is going to be in Scorpio. November 22, your chart ruler, the sun, will enter Sagittarius. For Leo rising, Sagittarius is your 5th house. So this is a time to have fun. Sun enters Sagittarius for Leo rising is basically you're coming home. Because Leo, you are the original ruler of the 5th house. 5th house is the house of fun, creativity, love, romance, self-expression, children. Sun, your chart ruler, enters the 5th house. This is like you coming home because the vibes, the energy of the 5th house is you, Leo. So Sun enters Sagittarius November 22nd. And then after that, we're going to experience Saturn direct November 28th in Pisces. And on November 29th, Mercury will turn direct in Scorpio. November 30th, Venus enters Sagittarius. Once again, because of the movement of the Sun towards Sagittarius, Venus enters Sagittarius on the last day of the month, as well as Mercury retrogrades in Sagittarius. Your 5th house is going to be very much illuminated, activated. So it's about creativity, self-expression, love, romance, fun. Of course, for the first half, for the few weeks prior to that, early part, or for pretty much of November, Sun will still be in Scorpio, your 4th house. So this month is a transition between your 4th house, family, into your 5th house, creativity and joy. But you also have to remember Mercury turns retrograde, so no major decisions I advise for everyone. So if you want to sign a contract, do something that involves mercurial things, if you can put it on hold, put it on hold until at least after Mercury turns direct later in the month. So for my Leo rising, for the last part of the month, it's going to be blissful, joy, you, self-expression, 5th house. But for the earlier parts of the month, right, your energy is still focused on family, 4th house. For the next sign, we will go to Virgo rising, the most accurate, followed by Virgo sun and Virgo moon. For Virgo rising, this month of November, the same with Gemini, is going to be very important for you. Why? Because your chart ruler Mercury is on the move, and Mercury is going to be retrograde for most of the month. So pay attention to details. You're not going to be too hard in doing that because you're detail-oriented, Virgo. But if you want to start something new, or you want to sign contracts or anything that involves mercurial things, put it on hold until Mercury turns direct. So November 4th, Mars enters Sagittarius. November 5th, full moon in Taurus. Right? November 6th, Venus enters Scorpio. November 8th, Uranus leaves Gemini and re-enters Taurus. November 9th, important for you, Mercury turns retrograde, your chart ruler. It will turn retrograde in Sagittarius. For you, Sagittarius is your 4th house. So it's all about family. And then November 11th, Jupiter turns retrograde. And then November 19th, Mercury leaves Sagittarius, will leave your 4th house and re-enter Scorpio, which is your 3rd house. November 20th, there's a new moon in Scorpio. And then after the new moon in Scorpio, November 20th, Sun will enter Sagittarius, November 22nd. Right, your 4th house. And then Saturn will turn direct in Pisces, in your 7th house. Alright, so the last lessons regarding relationship. Mercury turns direct November 29th. Your chart ruler, finally, it will turn direct in Scorpio, 3rd house. And then November 30th, Venus enters Sagittarius, your 4th house. So the focus for Virgo will be on Mercury. It will be retrograding on your 4th house. It will re-enter your 3rd house and then back again to your 4th house. So this is about communications and family. 4th house is family, 3rd house is communication, as well as siblings. So pay attention. For the next rising sign, we will go to Libra rising, the most accurate, followed by Libra sun and Libra moon. For my dear Libra rising friends, the most important thing to watch out in November would be, of course, not just Mercury retrograde, but Venus, because your chart ruler is Venus. Venus will enter Venus will enter Scorpio November 6th, as well as Venus will enter Sagittarius November 3rd. Scorpio is your Scorpio is your second house, money. Venus is familiar with this territory because Venus is the original ruler of the second house. And then Venus will enter Sagittarius last day of the month, which means that it will beautify your third house, communications. Okay, November 4th, Mars enters Sagittarius. November 5th, there's going to be a full moon in Taurus in your 8th house. November 6th, Venus, your chart ruler, enters Scorpio, your second house. November 8th, Uranus leaves Gemini, re-enters Taurus, your 8th house. November 8th, Uranus re-enters Taurus. November 9th, Mercury turns retrograde in Sagittarius, your 3rd house. November 11th, Jupiter's retrograde in your 10th house, your career part. So there's going to be some review in terms of your career. And then after that, Mercury leaves Sagittarius November 19th, re-enters Scorpio. And then November 20th, there's going to be a new moon in Scorpio, second house. And then November 22nd, the Sun enters Sagittarius, your 3rd house. And then November 28th, Saturn turns direct in your 6th house. Whatever lessons that you need to integrate to your life in regards to 6th house, health, work, details, pets, Saturn will finally brings blessings, because Saturn will clean up this part of your house. This is the last time Saturn will be here. So learn the lesson. And then November 29th, Mercury turns direct in Scorpio, your 2nd house. Sorry. And then November 30th, important day for you, because your chart ruler Venus will enter Sagittarius. So your chart ruler will enter Scorpio and Sagittarius, as well as retrogrades will involve Sagittarius and Scorpio. Sun will also enter Sagittarius. So 2nd and 3rd house is going to be very, very important for you, Libra, for this month of November. So it's about money and communications. For the next rising sign, we will go to Scorpio rising, the most accurate, followed by Scorpio sun and Scorpio moon. For the month of November, the most important thing to watch would be Mercury retrograde for you, Scorpio, as well as Mars, because your co-ruler, you're ruled by 2 planets, Pluto and Mars. Mars will be in Sagittarius on the beginning of the month. So yes, on the 4th of November, Mars will enter Sagittarius. November 5th, there's going to be a full moon in Taurus, your 7th house. Because Scorpio, Taurus is your 7th house. And then on November 6th, Venus will enter Scorpio, your 1st house. November 8th, Uranus will re-enter Taurus, once again, your 4th house. November 9th, Mercury turns retrograde in Sagittarius. Mercury will be in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is your 2nd house. And then November 11th, Jupiter turns retrograde in Cancer. And then on November 19th, Mercury re-enters Scorpio, which is your 1st house. November 20th, new moon in Scorpio. You're going to be the star of this new moon. And then Sun will enter Sagittarius November 22nd, your 2nd house. And Saturn will turn direct November 28th in Pisces. Pisces will be your 5th house. And then November 29th, Mercury will turn direct finally in your sign. It will be re-entering Sagittarius later. And then November 30th, Venus will leave your sign and re-enter Sagittarius. Will enter Sagittarius November 30th. So the most important thing to watch is Mars entering Sagittarius, which is your 2nd house. And then Mercury will turn retrograde from Sagittarius to Scorpio and then back to Sagittarius, meaning for Scorpio it will be your 1st and 2nd house, as well as Venus will enter Scorpio and Sagittarius, 1st and 2nd house also, as well as the full moon and new moon that will happen in your axis. New moon will happen in your 1st house and the full moon will happen in your 7th house. So first house, second house, and seventh house, these are the houses that will be activated by the transit. Not only that, Sun will also enter Sagittarius, so very, very big focus on your second house money. For the next rising sign, we will go to Sagittarius rising, the most accurate, followed by Sagittarius sun and Sagittarius moon. So Sagittarius, you're going to be the star of this entire month, November, because there's going to be retrogrades in your sign, and your chart ruler Jupiter is also going to be retrograde. So a lot of review for your life starting this month. But this month is going to be intense because not only your chart ruler is retrograding, but Mercury is retrograding in your sign. So November 4th, Mars enters Sagittarius, first house, so be careful of inflammation. Make sure you take care of your health. If Mars is a hot energy, instead of blasting people with your anger, why don't you use the Mars energy to just be active? Fitness, right? And then November 5th, full moon in Taurus. November 6th, Venus enters Scorpio, your 12th house. This is a good time for us. Rest, relaxation, recuperation. And then November 8th, Uranus re-enters Taurus. November 9th, Mercury is going to retrograde in your sign, first house. So also watch out for your decision, your body, take care of your health. November 11th, Jupiter turns retrograde in Cancer in your 8th house. Also just be very careful because it involves 8th house. Yes, Jupiter is going to bless you. You don't have to worry about that, but there's nothing wrong with just being sure, right? Being proactive. And then after that, November 19th, Mercury leaves Sagittarius. You will enter re-enters Scorpio, your 12th house. And then November 20th, new moon in Scorpio, your 12th house. November 22nd, Sun enters Sagittarius. This will give you an additional umph, additional vitality. Sun enters your sign, first house. And then November 28th, Saturn turns direct in Pisces. Pisces is your 4th house, family. November 29th, Mercury turns direct, finally. Yes, if you've been doing things, make sure being diligent during Mercury retrograde period, the results could be seen after Mercury turns direct, and especially after Mercury leaves its shadow period, which would be in December. And then November 30th, Venus enters Sagittarius, your first house. So the Sun and Venus will enter Sagittarius, your first house, in the second half of the month. So vitality, beauty. But on the first part of the month, Mars will enter Sagittarius, as well as Mercury retrograde. So you have to be careful. If you want to channel that hot Martian energy, do it not by anger, but by being active. And not only that, Mercury will retrogrades in the 1st and 12th house. This is all about you, as well as your sleep, your mental health. So just pay attention. And Jupiter is your chart ruler, retrograding in your 8th house. So 12th house, 1st house, right? And as well as your 8th house. These are the houses that's going to be activated this month. For the 10th rising sign, we will go to Capricorn rising, the most accurate, followed by Capricorn sun and Capricorn moon. For my dear Capricorn rising friends, this month of November will focus on Saturn, which is your chart ruler, that will turn direct in Pisces. Not only that, Jupiter is opposing you in Cancer, also turning retrograde. Saturn will be direct, but Jupiter will turn retrograde in your 7th house. So the focus will be on Saturn, your chart ruler, which is in Pisces. Pisces is your 3rd house. So communications. There's something about communication and siblings that's going to improve after Saturn turns direct. Okay, for the first part, 4th of November, Mars enters Sagittarius. 5th of November, there's going to be a full moon in Taurus, right? For Capricorn rising, Taurus is your 5th house, so creativity. And then November 6th, Venus enters Scorpio. And then November 8th, we're going to have Uranus re-enters Taurus again, your 5th house. November 9th, Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, your 12th house. Sleep, rest, relaxation. November 11th, Jupiter turns retrograde in Cancer in your 7th house, your partnership. November 19th, Mercury leaves Sagittarius and re-enters Scorpio. And then after that, November 20th, there's going to be a new moon in Scorpio. Scorpio is your 11th house, right? Your friendship. Maybe you could find some new friends. You could make some new friends, new networking. And then November 22nd, Sun enters Sagittarius, your 12th house. This is the time for relax, sleep, rest, and relaxation. And then November 28th, Saturn turns direct in Pisces. Pisces is your 3rd house. And then November 29th, Mercury turns direct in Scorpio, and we will re-enter Sagittarius, right? Mercury will turn direct in your 11th house, because for Capricorn, 11th house is Sagittarius. Scorpio. And then November 30th, Venus will enter Sagittarius, your 12th house. So for this entire month of November, focus is going to be in your 12th house, your 11th house, right? As well as your Pisces house, 3rd house. Your chart ruler is in Pisces, your 3rd house. The Sun, Mars, retrogrades, as well as Venus will activate your 12th house for Sagittarius, because for Capricorn, because Sagittarius is your 12th house. This is the month of rest, relaxation, mental health. Focus this, because Mercury also retrograde in your 12th house. And then Venus, as well as part of the mercurial retrograde motion, will also activate your 11th house, Scorpio. So for Capricorn rising, 11th house, 12th house, as well as 3rd house, and also Jupiter, 7th house, will be activated this month in November. Okay, for the next rising sign, we will go to Aquarius rising, the most accurate, followed by Aquarius sun and Aquarius moon. For my dear Aquarius rising friends, this month of November, the focus will be on 2 planets, Saturn and Uranus. Saturn will turn direct, and Uranus will leave Gemini, re-enters Taurus. So for you, on the 4th of November, Mars will enter Sagittarius. On the 5th of November, full moon is going to happen in Taurus. November 6th, Venus will enter Scorpio. November 8th, this is important because this is your modern chart ruler. Uranus will leave Gemini and re-enters Taurus. For you, Taurus, for Aquarius rising, Taurus is your 4th house. There's family matters that need to be dealt with. And then November 9th, Mercury retrogrades in Sagittarius. November 11th, Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. Right? And then after that, Mercury leaves Sagittarius. November 19th, re-enters Scorpio, your 10th house. November 20th, there's going to be a new moon in Scorpio, your 10th house. Maybe you're starting a new job. Or this is also a good time to start looking for a job. But remember, Mercury is still retrograde. So, yes, if you want to commit to it, do it. But, yes, if I can advise you, do not commit long-term during Mercury retrograde. And then after that, November 22nd, Sun enters Sagittarius. November 28th, your ancient ruler, Saturn, will turn direct in Pisces, your 2nd house. And then November 29th, Mercury turns direct in Sagittarius. Mercury will turn direct in Scorpio. Yes, it will be in Scorpio. And then November 30th, Venus will enter Sagittarius. So for you, houses that will deeply affect houses that will be activated would be the house of, the most important would be your chart ruler, which is going to be your Uranus house and also your Saturn house. Uranus house will be in Taurus, your 4th house, and then your Saturn house will be in Pisces, your 2nd house. So this is about family and money for Aquarius rising, as well as your Scorpio and Sagittarius house. Scorpio is your 10th house, and Sagittarius will be your 11th house. So there's going to be a lot of reviews in terms of friendship, and as well as a review and a new start in terms of your career. So 11th, 10th, 4th, and 2nd house. 2nd house is where Saturn is, money. 4th house is where Uranus is, family. 10th house is where Scorpio, there's going to be a new moon here, as well as part of the retrogrades. 10th house, career, review, as well as new opportunities. And Sagittarius house, your 11th house, right? Your Sagittarius house. This is where friendship. So there's going to be a lot of reviews in terms of friendship, networking, and social media. For the last rising sign, we will go to Pisces rising, the most accurate, followed by Pisces sun and Pisces moon. For my dear Pisces rising friends, for the month of November, the focus will be in Jupiter, your ancient chart ruler. Jupiter will be in Cancer, exalted, but it will turn retrograde on November 11th. So there's going to be a bit of a review in terms of your life. So November 4th, Mars will enter Sagittarius. November 5th, full moon in Taurus. November 6th, there's going to be Venus entering Scorpio. And then November 8th, Uranus will re-enter Taurus. November 9th, Mercury retrograde. This is also important for all of us. Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. Sagittarius will be your 10th house. So retrograde in your 10th house. Review in terms of a career. And then November 11th, Jupiter, your chart ruler, will be retrograding in Cancer in your 5th house. So review in terms of your children, creativity, fun, romance, love. And then November 19th, Mercury leaves Sagittarius and re-enters Scorpio, which is your 9th house. November 20th, there's going to be a new moon in Scorpio, 9th house. And then November 22nd, Sun enters Sagittarius, your 10th house. November 28th, Saturn will turn direct in Pisces in your 1st house. So this is the last time that you will meet Saturn for the next few decades. So whatever lessons that Saturn is going to teach you, just take it. It's for the better. Saturn is cleaning up your 1st house. And then November 29th, Mercury turns direct in Scorpio. And then November 30th, Venus enters Sagittarius, your 10th house. So your 5th house, Cancer, your 1st house, Saturn in Pisces, and then your 9th house, Scorpio, as well as your 10th house, Sagittarius. These are the houses that's going to be affected by the transits in November. Your chart ruler is in the 5th house, retrograding. It's about fun, creativity, self-expression, children. Saturn turns direct in your 1st house, cleaning up karma. And then there's going to be still a lot of energy for the first part of the month in Scorpio, your 9th house. And then retrogrades will happen in your 10th house, career. And then in your 9th house, and then back again in your 10th house, Sagittarius. So just be mindful regarding your career. There's going to be some review on part of your career, but this is just for the better.